Hi everyone, my name is Jerry Bide. I'm from Nigeria.
My name is Wunde Yahya Abdulwahid. I'm from Ghana.
I am Luana Mwanyabwe from Malawi.
This is Edward Chimbreni. I come from Rwanda.
Hello, my name is Prudence Nyambura from Kenya.
Hello, my name is Adam Kana and I'm from Ethiopia.
Hello, my name is Eunice Karasa and I'm from Malawi.
My name is Lula Matani and I'm from Eritrea.
Hello everyone, my name is Ricardo Nganya and I'm from Mozambique.
Hello everyone, this is Maro Benamor from Tunisia.
Hello, my name is Precious and I'm from Uganda.
My name is Chisoma and I am from Malawi.
I'm Sujeuda Alida Georges from Cameroon.
Eboh from Sierra Leone.
I am Patricia Mlendanga from Malawi.
Hi, I am Agula Esther from Kenya.
Hello, my name is Marumbo Titus Mumba from Malawi, the one part of Africa.
Hello everyone, my name is Tunetes Mabakwa. I'm from Mozambique.
My name is Clara Dampeni from Malawi.
Hello, I am Aisha Tujala from Sierra Leone.
Hello everybody, my name is Bonga Chabuna and I am from Malawi. I'm so happy to be part of the CRUST Eco Network Green Masterclass Cohort 3.
Greetings to everyone and welcome on our today's session about green building. And today we will explore how designing and building can contribute to a more sustainable future. And my name is Esther Godfrey Mkanza from Tanzania. I'll be moderating today's session. And we have our facilitator here. His name is Wilson Eboh. He's a civil engineering from Nigeria, and he's more passionate about designing and buildings for the benefit of the planet. Wilson, he's a committed, practical, sustainable engineer, but also Wilson combines engineering experts with the environmental responsibility to deliver long-term value. So we're going to have a very great discussion today. And as a key facilitator of our today's session, he's going to teach us about green building concepts, showing us how thoughtful designs can foster healthy and sustainable environment for our communities. And through his professional work and knowledge sharing, he will inspire a lot of us and our organizations in construction for the sustainable future. So I would love to welcome you all on today's session. And please don't forget to subscribe the CRUST Eco Network channel if you haven't subscribed, so that we can learn and share a lot of things. Welcome, Wilson, and take your time.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Esther. It was a very big privilege and honor for me to be here to share with us some of the key concepts of green building. And I trust that we'll have a good time. So I'm quickly going to share my screen. And please, if you have a question, you have something you want us to, put the pedal on and talk about more extensively, please do well to leave it on the comment section. And the appropriate team would convey it to us. Once again, I'm delighted to be here. So I'm quickly going to share my screen so we can make progress. All right, welcome everyone again. So today we're going to be talking about green buildings. And so it's going to be very interesting because green building is actually one of the most important sectors to consider when we talk about environmental pollution. And so we are going to be looking at what impact it's been making, the journey so far, how far have we gone with trying to cover green buildings and see the mitigation process that we can undertake, the paths that we can take to see a sustainable future. So if you have a question, please do well to put them down on the comment section and the appropriate team will reach back to us. All right, let's dive into it. First, I would like to say that there is so much around green building that is not spoken about, majorly because of the traditional design style that has been, over the time practiced in our construction industry. Many persons have actually been constructing, building living spaces, but then most of these living spaces are not healthy because the people that are building it are just more focused on building just conventional styles, conventional real estate, conventional living spaces where people just live. And then at the end of the day, nobody's thinking about the environment. But then just like Mahatma Gandhi said, the environment has enough to give to everyone, but not enough to give to everyone's greed. So we've gotten to that point where we've overexplored our environment in terms of building, and now it's beginning to respond to us. According to the United Nations, environmental program from 2024 to 2025, the Global Status Report says that the building and construction industry has contributed 34% of global carbon dioxide emissions. You can imagine what 34% means. That's more than that's more than 1/4 of the whole global emissions like generated globally from different sectors. So the building industry and the construction industry needs to be looked into to see how we can better, control the pollution and emission coming from this industry. So a sustainable built environment starts from recognizing the potential of the built environment. It's so interesting to know that nature itself has a very dynamic way it takes care of itself. The way God designed nature, He designed it in such a way that if we follow like the process, if we follow through properly, nature can actually heal itself. So if we start recognizing that there are potentials in the built environment to help it heal itself, then we begin to know how to tailor our constructions, our buildings, and all that we do in the living environment to see that there is a cooperation. So it involves recognizing that existing natural resources are already there. It's not something you need to manufacture. That's the beautiful thing about green building. You're not trying to bring anything new from anywhere. It's just looking at your environment and seeing what can I align with my environment in this construction process I'm undertaking to make sure that there is a partnership. Before now, most of the things we see is people building isolated buildings, building, constructing, building living spaces that are just independent of the environment. But that's not the way it's structured. That's not the way it's designed. The environment is meant to partner with the building so that both of them can actually, coexist. Instead of us building spaces that end up destroying the environment, we can build spaces that end up partnering with the environment to make it a more sustainable living space. The beautiful thing about the environment is that if we take care of our environment will take care of us. All right, so we'll go to the next slide. So let's talk about the position of Africa. I'm very passionate about Africa because I know many persons may be joined from different parts of the world. But the reason why I'm bringing Africa as a case study is that we look like the ones who are lagging behind when it comes to this adoption and this inclusion that has to do with green buildings. And so I want to talk about Africa especially. We've seen quite an awakening of the consciousness of green building in the past few years, especially when some of these sustainable certification industries are coming up, things like Edge, Lead, and all of that. We've seen that Africa is beginning to wake up to the call, but there's still so much to be done. For instance, we see from statistics that over 10 million square meters of floor spaces have been certified already in Africa by Edge. Yeah, and it's quite commendable to say over 10 million. But 10 million compared to what? That's when you now keep seeing that there's still a gap. So African cities are growing by 18 million annually. Just imagine that the cities in Africa are growing by 18 million people annually. And then it means that the more population that we have in the cities, it means that urbanization now is coming in. So people are now getting into the major city centers, and that's where they are living. But then as we begin to see that there's a growing number of people annually, we also have noticed that there is a decline in the provision of green spaces. So the more people are living in spaces, if we don't create this awareness like Cross Echo is doing right now, we're going to have living spaces that are going to be more polluted because these people are not educated on how to best utilize these living spaces. So as we are growing in number, if we bring in this consciousness, if we bring in this education, if we bring in this sensitization, it makes the more people coming into this urbanizations scheme to begin to power it in a more sustainable way. So we see that over 80% of the building that would exist in 2050 in Africa are not yet built. This is the most beautiful part of all of this. Think about 80%. With the rate at which we are growing in population, we're saying that in 2050, 80% of the buildings that would still exist have not yet been built by that time. So it creates a call for every one of us that there is still an opportunity for us to get it right in the sustainable industry. I must say that at this point that there are 4 countries that have moved further from just having sustainability as a byword in the building sector to a serious engagement. Countries like Ghana, Rwanda, South Africa, Uganda, and some other countries are beginning to bring it into their policy frameworks. They're beginning to encourage it through green finance and other policies that encourage green investors to come in and begin to look at how they can improve the living space. So let's talk about green building frontliners. It's important to recognize that there's no way you can do this. There's no way you can build sustainably. There's no way you can empower people in the green industry without getting the stakeholders in the green building industry or the construction industry involved. In 2024, I did a research and I tried to interview homeowners, interview construction stakeholders like engineers, architects, and I tried to find out, okay, why are people not getting involved in green building, getting involved in sustainability? It's quite shocking that some of the things I actually found as the result from my survey is that many persons are not getting involved in sustainability and green building because they don't even have a knowledge of it. Many of the experts, many of the intelligent constructors, engineers, architects, many of them are not getting involved, not because they don't want to, but for some of them, they don't know how to. So we see that there's still a gap in the knowledge sector in this green building. And we also see that some of them, though they know that they can actually do it, on the homeowner's part, many persons are adopting conventional buildings. So for instance, people are saying, oh, what's the point? I want to build the house that so my friend built. I saw this design somewhere and I just liked it. I want to build it. But some of them don't understand that the designs that they want to replicate, some of those designs are just conventional designs that are still polluting our environments. So we're trying to create this sensitization that as a homeowner, if you know and you're aware of green building, you can come to the point where when you're talking to your to the engineer that's going to build your house, to the architect that's going to draw the plan, you are talking to them and you already know that you want your environment, you want your living space to contribute to the sustainability of the environment. Everyone plays a role in the actualization of a sustainable built environment. Let's look at the urgency. Why are we making this a big deal? You know, every day I talk about sustainability. I'm active in the construction industry, and I try as much as I can to actually bring this in. And I see the struggle that we face. We face a lot of struggle because so many persons don't yet see it. So many persons don't get it yet. And some persons think that it's just a sustainability, just a fancy word in the construction industry. But then we are still pushing to get to the point where we can make people see that sustainability is also about health. It's not just about protecting the environment, it's about making your living space healthy for you yourself. Because if you will get into it, when we talk about indoor air quality and other parameters that we use to measure uh, green buildings, we would see that most of these things are actually for the improvement of the value of the assets, that's the building itself, the improvement of the health of the people that are actually found in that building. We've seen that over time, a lot of death cases that has been recorded, we're actually connected in one way or the other to the fact that buildings were not sustainably designed. For instance, we see that there are buildings that, in fact, let's be frank about this. Let's look at this from this perspective first. A lot of our lives, we spend it in buildings. I don't know how many of us right now watching me or listening to me are outside the building currently. If you may not be in your house, but you may be in your office. You may not be in your office, you may be in the cafe. You may not be in the cafe, you may be in a restaurant somewhere eating. You may not be in a restaurant, you may be in your friend's house, but all of these are done in a living environment. And so you see that because we spend so much time in an environment, in a building, in a space, if they're not well taken care of, most of the things happening in that environment contribute to us. Like they add in one way or the other to us. Just imagine staying in an environment that is polluted. Like the carbon dioxide in that environment is just too saturated and you keep taking it in. Aside from it just the ideal thing to take in as humans is oxygen. If you take in too much carbon dioxide, there may be some complications around that. So if you have an environment that is living and sustainable, it also contributes to your health. Research has actually proven that people who are working in a sustainably designed environment, they perform better because there's a way people connect with nature. You go to countries like Switzerland, you see how they allow people to drive past a long span of bridge running across a water body because it's therapeutic. I was involved in a project where we were building a rehabilitation center for the military. And part of the things that we introduced as the green concept of that design is we tried to introduce a wellness center. And in the wellness center, we designed an artificial lake. We try to make sure that after doing our EIA, that's environmental impact analysis of that environment, we try to bring in a water body that would allow people to heal faster because you're bringing in wounded soldiers, you're bringing in traumatized soldiers. So if you're bringing these people in, we trust that the environment also has a partnership to play in their healing process. And the more you dive into this green building, the more you see that it's beyond just the fancy talk of sustainability. It's actually measurable, it's actually attainable, and the impacts are clear as we progress with SIMO. Let's talk about the key components of a green building. When we talk about the key components of a green building, we're talking about the parameters to work on, the parameters to improve on, the parameters to look out for. And the first we'll look at here right now is energy saving. You see, when we talk about energy saving, we're not just talking about energy saving because we are saying, okay, just save energy and all of that. If you're saving energy, you're making the dependence on energy lower. And then the available energy that you can source from renewable sources, you can now make do with them without having a building collapse or a power collapse or anything like that. So we're talking about energy saving. We're looking at water saving also. We're looking at operational efficiency. We're looking at Esther, do you have a feedback for me?
Yes, hello, Wilson. I think we have problem with the slides. Can we zoom it, please? As we are waiting for the slides, I would love to remind all of our participants that registration is mandatory, the attendance, and it will be shared on the YouTube chat randomly. So please kindly register yourself when you find the registration form through the YouTube chats. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I've seen comment from YouTube that some of the participant has already noted the announcement about registration form, but also there are others who are asking, like they need the form. So you need to pay attention to the text, the YouTube messages, and it will be shared randomly. So please don't worry, everything is okay.
So can you see my screen? Is it better now? I don't know if it's...
Yes, we can see it now.
All right. I was talking about the urgency of green building. I think I passed that. Okay, I was talking about the key components of a green building. So the first we talked about is the energy saving, talked about water saving, operational efficiency, indoor air quality, waste characterization, and circularity. This is quite important because when we start going deeper, we start seeing the need for these things. All right, let's talk about a shift from generators. You see, generators have actually been the conventional ways of, generating energy. But then the problem about this is that generators generate carbon fossils. It goes through a process called combustion. And so when we power our buildings like that, we see that even though we have energy sources, we then are contributing to the pollution of the environment. So what are the clean ways to look at energy? we are talking about looking at energy from renewable sources. Renewable sources are sources that they can replenish themselves. Just like the same way, you sleep, you wake up, you see the sun come up, the sun goes down, the sun comes up, the sun goes down. That is a system that is renewable. So once we shift from the conventional energy to renewable energy, the next thing we need to do is to achieve an energy saving. So here, there's a system. By the way, I would recommend Edge because Edge is excellence in design for greater efficiency. Edge is a platform, Edge is a tool that helps people to measure and track the amount of carbon that a building saves and how much sustainability a building can achieve. So with the Edge certification, if you can get a 20% to 40% energy saving, your building is certified by Edge. So this means a reduction in energy loads by intentionally selecting appliances that you use. So the easiest way for people to select appliances that they use is actually to look at the label. You see, because of the move in sustainability, majority of the companies that are producing appliances now, they look at being regulated and registered on some energy labels. Like one of them is Energy Star. So when you are looking at getting an appliance, you have to check for appliances that have low load points. For instance, you don't need to get, you can see a big television, but then the energy that it consumes is actually very small. So I wish I have time to, let me check my time so I can know how much time I have left, because I want to talk about, I really wish I could talk about this. How much time do I have left? Because I want to take questions and answers. Okay, this is already 30 minutes. I have maybe 5 minutes more to run through this slide. Okay, so it's important to know that it's necessary to save the amount of energy you use. So you have to look at appliances you're getting, make sure that the appliances you're getting are not energy intensive. Because when we talk about sustainability, we're saying everything that happens in this building must come to the point where it saves energy. That's the end result. End result is that it may save energy. And energy that is renewable is actually one that you can measure as sustainable. All right, so let's look at the next one. Let's talk about water management strategies. So when we're talking about water management strategies, we're trying to say that there's also something called water saving. So you see, when we talk about water saving, especially in Africa, many persons or some persons like from, around those dry deserts regions in Africa may understand the concept of water scarcity. You see, but some of us, we still don't understand the concept of water scarcity because somebody's saying like, oh, water is abundant everywhere. Why should I measure water that I use? Why should I measure water that I consume? Yes, there is in fact, the world is made up of almost 80% of water body. But then if we are talking about water, we're talking about water that is drinkable. See, water that you can use for your house chores are not the water you see everywhere. Those waters, some of them still have some impurities that they need to go through so that they can become soft water. But we're saying that water that is easily, readily available for drinking, for use, for cooking, that's healthy, it is scarce. So we need to make sure that we measure water per capita use. So when I say per capita use, we're saying how much water does one person consume? You need to find out. In fact, you need to deliberately take a track record on yourself. How many liters of water do I consume in a day? You see, the reason why you need to learn all of these things is because you need to prepare yourself for sustainability. And if you really want to be a key player in this sustainable move, you need to be the one that embodies it, not just in principle, but in lifestyle. Like, for instance, I think I was driving with a friend of mine yesterday. And so he wanted to so when I was in the car, he said, okay, can you help me throw away this? Can you help me trash this can? And I'm like, give me, I'll keep it in my pocket. I'll discard it later. And he started laughing. And I'm like, well, it's from the principles I know from green engineering. I don't do that. So it's saying that not just knowing these things in principle, begin to practice it as a lifestyle, because if you must get people to join this and build a sustainable future, we must begin to practice it as a lifestyle. So water circularity is also very important. When was the last time you asked yourself, after you used water for something, did you ask yourself, what else can I use this water for? There are so many things you can use water for after you finish using it for a certain event, right? Look at ways that you can use water again. For instance, if you use water to probably to say wash your clothes, what can I use it again for? Can I use it to wash my rags? Can I use it to wash? I mean, just look around and look for ways that you can still use that water. Make sure that you exhaust the water instead of always going to take fresh water and all of that. That's water wastage. Look at other things. Can I use this water for irrigation? Can I use this water for this? Can I use this water for that? Just try and look at ways to see how you can conserve water. Recycling is a big part of water conservation. And always ask, what can I use waste water for? Operational efficiency. This is very important because a lot of times, let me just explain it in lay time. What do you need to be comfortable in your house, and to what carbon cost? So for instance, some persons live in houses that for them to be comfortable, all their fans or ACs need to be on. All their heaters, everything that consumes energy needs to be on. But then for some of them, they do it at a high expense. The expense is the environment pays for it because you use maybe non-renewable sources to power your house, and then you are consuming a lot just to get your comfort. The environment is paying for it. So operational efficiency is making sure that your building runs on sustainability, sustainable processes. How do I make sure I get comfort by cutting down emission? That is very, very important. And indoor air quality. Indoor air quality is important because a lot of times, most of the things that we see as fresh air, they're actually not fresh. But then think about having a conversation under a tree with a friend. You're under a tree and then you're having a conversation. Sometimes you feel like you don't even want to leave because there's just this fresh oxygen that you inhale. I once stayed in the house of a woman who is, the husband is a geologist, but then the husband is so keen about sustainability. I stayed in that compound. The compound is littered with flowers and trees. And I tell you, the moment I step in, I feel like I don't want to leave the house again. The water is drilled to the aquifer, fresh water. The environment is breathing life. So you see that the internal indoor air quality of that environment is filtered because the plants there are taking out the carbon dioxide. There's something we call carbon capture. The plants are taking out the carbon dioxide and giving in oxygen at a rapid rate. And so you're getting a fresh air. It increases your life, increases your health, it improves your environment, it makes it beautifies aesthetically and all of that. So if you're looking at green spaces, we're also saying, how do we improve the internal air quality? So you're not seeing that sustainability is not just about environmental protection alone, but when you protect and bring the synergy between the environment and the living space, that's your building, you begin to see that there's a cooperation. The environment also begins to serve you in a way that you cannot even quantify. Let's look at carbon capture. Oh, am I too fast? Okay, so carbon capture, I just mentioned it. This is something we call carbon offset. So because there's something called embodied carbon, and cement is one of the big game player. And most of the buildings we build today are built on cement, like with cement. And so if you want to offset the carbon you are generating from that building, another way you can do it is carbon offset. Carbon offset is when you go and donate or pay a certain amount of money to say, okay, my building is generating so amount of carbon emission. I want to pay this so amount of money so that you can plant a forest reserve around my environment, so that the forest reserve around my environment would take out the exact amount of carbon emission that my building is generating. So that is actually on the loose right now for big industries that are building infrastructures that have some emissions. The government of certain countries would have to make them pay for carbon offset. Otherwise, that infrastructure will not run. And that's a sustainable way to continue to improve our environment. Let's just do a quick teaser. What are the benefits of green buildings? People in green environments perform better than people in non-green spaces. That's the truth. Even just as small as having a bright paint on your wall. Currently, right now, I'm just using my natural indoor lights, and my room is lit up in a certain way because the color of my wall is bright. Some persons, even as small as choosing the paints that you use for your house, it's important, because if you don't do that, you are going to have a darker space, and it will require that you add an energy source to it. So it consumes energy. You may not need a fan if your window is well positioned to receive natural air. So these are little tweaks that start from the design process of buildings to achieve a sustainable building. So they live naturally longer. People in green spaces, I mean, you go to people that live like in villages, and you see how they have learned to, harmonize their environment, go for evening talk, have a tree just close to their house where they come and, with their old friends, sit down and talk. And you see that they naturally live longer than people that are in urban cities that are just very toxic, right? They pay lesser running costs for their spaces. They improve the value of their assets. I must commend Tanzania. I was just going online. I was looking through online, and I saw a building called, I think, Khan in Des Salami. I think that's the name of the school, and they achieved 100% energy saving on building. I've never seen that. That's the first in Africa, and it was really mind blowing, because it means that these people do not rely on any source generating carbon fossil for their building. And imagine a building at school that uses so many appliances. That's quite commendable. So let's talk about some materials that we can use to improve sustainability. Just recently, this is funny because just recently I was having a conversation with a senior colleague of mine in engineering, and then we were just talking about this bamboo because we were working on a project that the client is saying, I don't want to see bamboos on my site. They don't look pretty because we use them for scaffolding and others. And so I thought to myself, and I'm like, this is the reason why we should be advocating for sustainability. Even though I am somebody who is big about sustainability, it's difficult, but we are pushing it because most of these clients, they're just conventionally thinking, I just want a building. So if you're coming into the green space, I want you to know that these are challenges and pushback you would get, but you have to keep strong, keep talking about it. I made a post on my LinkedIn some time back, and I talked about the power of storytelling in building sustainability. So there's a way you convince the client by making them see the reason why. So bamboos are, very, very sustainable materials for buildings. Let's talk about window glazings. Window glazings are, they allow, I took this picture in one of the sites we worked on. So you can see the large opening that we have. So it's good to have large opening in buildings, but there's a disadvantage that comes with it if it's not properly controlled. So when it's not properly controlled, there is, as the sun rays are entering through the glass, the radiation is also penetrating through the glass. So for us to stop, it makes the room bright, but then it makes the room hotter. So for us to stop that, one of the things we do is we use a glazing glass. So a glazing glass is one that allows illumination, but stops the heating from entering, so the radiation does not get into the room. And then you see things like architectural things. Those ones, they serve as shadings for the window. So even though the sun falls on the fin. If you look at the second image, you see a fin there. The sun falls on the fin, and then it casts a shadow on the window where your opening is. So the direct sunlight is not entering. That's if you don't have money or you don't have a glazing window. The direct sunlight does not enter, but then the brightness and illumination still comes in. Modular construction. This is actually a new aspect, and this gets me interested. I wish I have a lot of time to talk about it. So this is prefabricated construction. In this case of modular construction, we are not building at the site like in situ construction. We just prefabricate elements and then we assemble them on the site. So one of the things that this does is that it stops waste. We reduce the waste that comes from our building by just, making sure that we plan this out, construct it on the site, or construct it, and then we bring it and assemble it at the site. So this building process saves carbon emission, reduces carbon emission, reduces time taken for building projects, and then improves collaboration between team members because they take out the time to plan out the building. Let's run because I want us to finish this. This is okay. I think I'm getting to the end of my slide. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about smart building technology. The first picture there, I took it at the office where I work. That's a carbon sensor. So one of the things that it does is that it helps you to track the amount of carbon emission that your living space is emitting. So once you can track the amount of carbon that your living space is emitting, you can measure how to mitigate it. So from data analysis, seeing the track record of how much data did I emit, how much carbon emission did I emit in the previous months in January. So by looking at that, just like the same way companies plan for their financial audits and then look at ways to make financial decisions from their financial history, you look at your carbon emission history, and then you begin to plan better way to mitigate it. This is a long-term way that industries can actually save save emission and plan in reducing emission in their work environment, living space, and all of it. You can even have this in your house as when you're keen about sustainability. Also, in the office where I work, we have a smart system where if a sensor that if I'm no longer in this living space, the light goes off. If my room temperature drops to a certain degree, my AC goes off. So saving those times in those periods where it goes off and comes on saves a lot of energy, and so it reduces the amount of energy consumption that I am consuming, because in the wait times it's saving energy. I don't know if you get that, but the real value is not in detection alone, but in data-driven emission. So once I'm using smart technology, I'm monitoring the energy I'm using in real time. There's an automating system response, and I'm optimizing consumption based on demand. So I only use my energy when I need it. All right, thank you so much, guys, for listening. What will you do? This is me asking a question now to everybody listening. What will you do about your living space to make it greener? Thank you for listening. I look forward to their questions. I don't mind to take them at this point. Thank you so much. Esther, I think I would hand over to you at this point.
Thank you so much, our very own engineer, civil engineering. It was a very nice session, teaching us about green building, how to care the environment, the basic components of green building and everything. I just hope everyone learned a lot today. Now we need to go direct to the questions, and I just picked up 2 questions. The first question says, help me to understand well, how does green building contribute to climate change mitigation? That was question.
Okay, that's a very interesting question, because if you don't know how green building contributes to climate change, you probably would not see the interest in it. So first of all, you need to understand that the operational process of buildings actually consume a lot of energy. So there's something called embodied carbon. So most of the materials we use for buildings, the process through which they are manufactured consume a lot of energy and releases a lot of carbon emission. For instance, if you investigate the amount of energy that the amount of carbon fossil that it takes to burn lime to get it to the form where it becomes cement, you would see that the emission contributes to a high degree to the carbon fossil released to the atmosphere. And if you look at steel too, we melt these things at a very high temperature, and it's through a thermal process that burns. And anything that burns releases carbon fossil to the atmosphere. So green buildings contribute to climate change through the embodied carbon materials that they absorb during the manufacturing process and also during the operational life cycle of the building. For instance, some buildings are big that they cannot operate without power sources. You need generators, um, you need a lot of things like aside from generators, some people still use locally sourced coals as their heaters in their house. Their metal piece, their fireplace has heaters, charcoals, and all of the chimneys too that emits carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. So buildings contribute to a large degree, first through embodied carbon materials, and secondly through their operational life cycle. I don't know if I answered that question clearly. Did I answer that question?
Yes, Wilson, you have answered our question. And
okay.
I want to go to the other questions. The other question says, how does green building in hospitals contribute to a net zero goals, and what metrics do you use to measure the impacts on both operational costs and climate-related health risks such as heat-related? I can come back again. How does green building in hospitals contribute to a net zero goals, and what metrics do you use to measure the impacts on both operational costs and climate-related health risks, such as heat-related?
Okay, so if I get the question correctly, the question is, how does emissions from hospitals, right? Is that what you said? Hospitals.
Yes.
Okay, so how does emissions from hospital affect climate change, and what are the means to measure it? That's operational cost and all of that. Is that correct?
How does green building hospitals contribute to net zero goals?
Okay,
and what
net zero.
metrics do you use to measure the impacts on both operational costs and climate-related health risks?
Okay, that's a very brilliant question. First of all, you must understand that your hospital is also a living space, and so to contribute to net zero, we must also, just like what we have been talking about, make sure that the environment is specially designed to allow partnership with the environment. So the environment is contributing directly to the internal space of the hospital. First of all, of course, there are hospitals that have like courtyards. Courtyards are very brilliant ways to allow natural sunlight and air to enter through a building. So the orientation of the building also make sure that the windows of the building are placed in very strategic points to allow the natural flow of fresh air. And I like the part that you asked, how do you measure the operational efficiency and cost saving? So you cannot measure it. There's a formula to do that, but the easiest way to do it is through a platform called Edge. So I design with Edge. So Edge is excellence in design for greater efficiency. I may actually send the link to the facilitator, Esther, after now. She may share it with the group for people who are interested. You would go on the app, and then you can put in the parameters, the size, the square area of your hospital, and put in the parameters that your hospital already have as a means to save energy. They would ask you to fill in for certain things like, okay, do you have like cross ventilation? Are you using generators? Do you use solar power? Do you save water? Your toilets, are they using water saving taps? We also have like faucets that that allow for water saving. Sometimes when you open the conventional tap, when you open it, the water falls down in lumps. But if you see pressure taps actually save more water because they come out with so much pressure and actually consume very little water. So you can measure your operational and cost savings on that Edge app because the Edge app is designed for your region. it's like a data-driven application that collects all the data within that region, and then when you fill in that those parameters, it will generate the data for you and show you how much you're saving on energy too. This may be a whole lot of session. Maybe I can do that some other time, but I think I believe I just helped you to see how you can measure your impacts. Esther, we good?
Yes, we're going to the third question. The third question says, can you please explain how we can know if a device uses less energy? I think referring of the house devices, maybe AC, refrigerator, and other devices, if they use less energy.
Okay, the first thing to look out for when you're looking for devices to check if your device actually saves energy is you have to check if it says if it has smart sensors. Smart sensors are very key ways to note if they are energy saving devices because for instance if you use an AC in your house, and your AC is set to it has smart sensor. So once it observes that your room is in a is at a temperature that is comfortable, it turns off and wait till it gets to a point where the room start getting warmer again. So the manufacturers put in certain sensors to it to say maybe when it falls below 17 degrees, then you can stop. The AC just shuts off by itself. And then when the temperature cools, and then that cooling that was already there at 17 degrees start fizzling out, maybe start increasing and then gets to 23 degrees, just turn back on. So look out for smart sensors in your electricity, and then check their some of these appliances they come with, the load unit it consumes on it, how many watts powers this, and all of that. Check if it still has a higher watt, then just know that it's something to look out for, really. Yeah. I believe I don't know if I answered that question.
Yes, you have answered our question, and we have like 2 questions left.
Okay.
The other question says, how reliable are the star ratings in energy products, or is it just a marketing strategy?
Well, truth of the matter is, it's just like saying, I don't know if you have like, in Nigeria, we have something called NAFDAC. I think National something for Food and Drug Regulatory Body, something commission. So they actually regulate drugs and food. So if a food has like a NAFDAC number, you can say, okay, well, I think that these guys have done their check and they're saying that this food actually. So they are, I would say, fairly reliable. I would say fairly reliable because that's what we can get right now. That's the best we can get in the market right now. So if you have like an energy saving status on your appliance and they are rated, like maybe 5-star rated, Energy Star rated, and some other regulatory, depending on the one that comes from the company you're buying from. I think that you should at least, it's better to have that than to not have any at all. So at least if you have that, even if it's not, you know that you are closer to using the best. And you can check these things by yourself, right? You can do a research on the products before you even buy them to see if they have energy ratings. And, check reviews. Does this consume energy? And all of that. Okay, so it's so in short, to answer it, I'll say yes, you can rely on them. That's the best metric you have at the moment.
Okay, that's so impressive. We have another question. It says, do we have specific data on places that are doing well with green building and has been embedded in their development policies?
Yes.
The question looks for, do we have those specific data or places that are doing well with the green building?
Yes. We actually have, as frankly speaking, in Africa right now, if you want to talk about the places that are doing quite well in green building, you talk about countries like South Africa. South Africa is doing very well, and there are countries like Ghana. They're beginning to look into sustainability. And see, you cannot say, let me just say this. You cannot say a country is doing well with sustainability if you've not started seeing it in their policy framework. You see, the push for sustainability gets even better when we see countries putting it as part of their policy framework for, the way the country is run. So if the country does not get to that point, you cannot say it's a sustainable city. So if we're talking about cities that are beginning to introduce it as a policy framework, we are talking about, Ghana, talking about South Africa, we're talking about UK, of course, is doing that already, US is doing that already. And these countries even go as far as, empowering their green building councils, because from country to country you'd see different countries have their green building council. So if you want to identify and know more about what's happening in your country and also contribute, for instance, I'm part of Nigerian Green Building Council, and one of the things I do or we do is we review the scorecard every year. We try to review the scorecard, try to come up with policies that would enable the government, make informed decisions about how to ensure that the green built environment experiences like a grassroots change. So that's very important. I think I answered the question.
Yes, all the questions are well answered, and we don't have another question for today. Thank you so much, Wilson. This was a very interesting topic. It was a very interesting discussion, and we have really learned a lot today. Some of us, we had no idea about green building, but today we have learned something new. And it shows it's a very interesting part that also researchers can rely on it and inform more about green building. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. I believe everyone has learned something, and we're looking forward to take more actions about green building to ensure sustainability in our communities. Thank you. I would love to welcome you for a wind-up message or anything else. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much, Esther. You've been amazing too. Thank you for handling the session in a very warm and engaging manner. I asked a question in my I think second to last slide, and I asked, what would you do to make your living space greener? So I want you to drop your comments on the YouTube channel, and I want to encourage you to, this is not just a one-off thing. CrossTecho is already doing an amazing job. So try as much as you can to share this with your friends and let them know that they can learn. I mean, this is the way you empower people with the knowledge on sustainability and climate change. And so tell us also how you'd make your living space greener on the comment, and I may just have a prize for someone. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Wilson. I hope everyone will leave a comment concerning the question that you have asked, like how are we going to make our spaces more greener? And I would love to thank you everyone for attending this Green Masterclass. It was nice having everyone. And the attendance form has already been shared a couple of times. Please, it's mandatory. Everyone should fill the form. And also, we are expecting to have a climate project that the members who has attended these sessions are required to fill a form, and the form will be shared through the WhatsApp platform. So get ready, get prepared. We need to have more good things from CrossTecho Network. Thank you so much for the session, Wilson. We have learned a lot and would love to learn more from you as well. I think we have ended the session today about the green building, and goodbye.